every single time I come around this corner without fail. I think that is a grouse. It's the right shape, it's the right size, and it's the right spot on the road. But alas, it's the never-ending game I like to play with myself called Is That a Rock or Is That a Grouse? What do you guys think? Hey, what is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I've been getting quite a few questions about when, where, and how I hunt for these ruffed grouse out here in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm going to try and address some of those questions today. What we're going to do is go around to some different habitats / environments, and I'm going to break them down and show you why I think they are maybe not so good or really good. I'm going to attempt to put these environments kind of in order from least good to most good. They're not going to be perfectly in order, but as a general rule, we're going to go from least good to most good. Now, kind of comically, as I was walking down to this spot here to kind of film this intro for this video, I actually flushed a grouse. I'm not actually hunting right now. I'm just here to film, but yeah, just off in the woods right over here, I flushed a grouse. You can kind of see the environment behind me. But there's a couple caveats to this video. I am not a bird expert. I think they're called ornithologists. I'm not one of those. I'm not a biologist. These are all just, from my own experience and research. This is going to be all stuff out of my head, out of my own knowledge. So with that being said, nothing that I'm going to say in this video is a hard, fast, absolute rule. These are just things that I've learned over the years. I have seen grouse in very strange places at very strange times. Places you wouldn't think there were grouse at times of day you wouldn't think there would be grouse. So whenever you're out hunting, don't really rule out any environment, just be more ready in certain environments. Now recently I got asked a question, which was, do I ever see grouse out in the rain? And it is actually raining right now, and I just saw a grouse. So grouse do come out in the rain. You can find them in the sun, in the rain, which leads me to my first tip. My very favorite time to hunt grouse is right after a big storm. So if it's cold and windy and rainy for a couple days and then all of a sudden it's decent the day after, try and get out that day, because those grouse might have been hunkered down during that storm, and then they'll come out to feed during that first decent weather. You guys might notice I'm on kind of a main road here, and as a general rule, I will not hunt these main roads on foot. I use them to drive from place to place, from hunting spot to hunting spot. Now, if I see a grouse whilst I'm driving, great. And if I think I can hop out and get it, I will often try. But what I do, like I said, is I'll drive to a side road like this. And then I will park and get out on foot. So these side roads are often much less traveled, and they will only be maybe 3/4 of a mile long or a mile long, so I can get out on foot and hunt them. Another question I've been asked is, how do I find these hunting spots here? So I like to get out and get my feet on the ground or my tires on the ground, whatever, but I like to get out and actually explore these places in person. I tend to not use Google Maps or any other maps. I like to get out there and actually see what the road is like, what the food source is like, what the ground cover is like, and what the trees are like, so I can actually have a good sense of if it's a road I want to get out and take the time to walk. All right, with all that being said, let's drive to our first spot and we'll take a look at it and sort of break down why I don't think it would be a good hunting spot for ruffed grouse. All right, we made it to spot number 1 here, and the weather has really turned on me once I got up in elevation out of those trees. Super windy and rainy out here. But that leads us into tip number 3, which is elevation. So these ruffed grouse generally will be at about 2,000 feet or lower. There's obviously going to be some gray area there. If you're up above 2,500 feet, 3,000 feet, you're going to start to get into blue grouse territory, which is great. Go for it. But as far as rough grouse, we're going for 2,000-ish feet or lower. Now, before I show you guys this spot, because it directly applies here and to the rest of the video as well, let me tell you guys about the four things that I look for when out looking for areas with grouse. Man, I had to come hide in the trees here. It's getting really stormy and gnarly out. So let's go over those four things that I look for when looking for a good grouse hunting spot. The first thing that I look for is roosting trees. So grouse like to roost generally in evergreen trees that are of middle age, not saplings and not super old growth is what I'm looking for. The second thing that I'm looking for is cover, as far as places for them to hide, feel safe, and be able to flush off or fly off real fast into and feel covered when they run away real quick. The third thing that I'm looking for is food. So on the ground, is there clover, is there berries, is there buds and young plants for them to eat, places where insects might come up, stuff like that. And then the fourth thing that I'm looking for in a good grouse spot is kind of just my own intuition. Does it feel grousey to me? Is this somewhere that in my experience I would think, man, there's got to be grouse here? So those are the four things. Keep those in mind throughout the video because they'll apply to all the spots. P.S. We'll get into more specifics of all those things as I take you guys to different areas and sort of actually show you that with the camera. So with that out of the way, let's go take a look at this first spot. All right, here's spot number one, you guys, and as you can tell, it is a clear cut that is maybe about 5 years old, and it basically has zero of the components that we're looking for. Whilst there might be some food available, there isn't cover or roosting trees, and it just doesn't feel grousey to me. So this first spot here, I would pass right on through and probably not even bother hunting. Now, just behind me here is an island, and what I mean by an island is a small group of trees that they have left in the middle of this clear cut that I just showed you. The other thing about this island of trees is that it has a draw with a creek in it. So if I'm driving through, or if I'm walking, which I'm probably not, but if I'm driving through a big clear cut, and I come across an island of trees like this, especially one like this with a creek in it and a draw, I am going to slow down and pay a little bit more attention because there's a pretty good chance there might be some grouse in here. And in fact, in this spot in particular, about 3 years ago, I was driving through and I was going to sight in my 22, and I bumped 5 grouse as I was driving, and they all flew up in the trees over here, and my 22 wasn't sighted in or anything, so I was just sitting there watching these grouse. Nothing I can do about it. But if you're driving through a clear cut and you come across an island of trees, just slow down and take a look real fast because there might be a couple of grouse in there. It's happened to me several times at places like this. Okay, let's go off to the next spot and see what we can get ourselves into. Okay, well, we're driving to spot number 2 here. I wanted to mention about something I forgot to mention about that last place we talked about, the tree island. So I wouldn't like drive out of my way to get to a spot like that. I was just saying, if you happen to be driving through and come across a spot like that, maybe slow down and just take a peek, but don't go way out of your way just to find, just to find a little island of trees. But let's talk about tip number 4. So tip number 4 is going to be about birds in general. So have you ever been driving down an old logging road or a dirt road and there's constantly just little robins and small birds flushing all over the place? That might be an indication that it is just in general a good day for birds to be out. Now, like I said, I'm not an ornithologist or biologist or any type of ologist, but grouse are birds, and if you see a bunch of birds out, maybe it's just a great day for birds to be out. So in my experience, if I'm seeing a ton of other birds, as a general rule, I will tend to see more grouse that day. So there's tip number 4. Now let's get to this next spot and I'll show you guys another combination of environment. Here we are at spot number 2, which I have put obviously kind of low on the list, and you might be thinking, hey, that doesn't look too bad. Well, let's break down the 4 components that we talked about earlier and see what we come up with. Number 1, does it have roosting trees? Well, yeah, there's roosting trees. Now they're a little bit on the older end of what I'd normally be looking for, but they're not all that bad. Number 2, does it have cover? So the answer to that is no. There isn't really any cover on the side of the roads for the grouse to flush off into. Now let me show you what I mean. If a grouse were here and it flushed off into the woods, it's going to be flushing off into these open woods. They're not going to feel all that safe and hidden in there. They like to flush into stuff that you wouldn't want to walk into. Number 3, does it have food source? Well, yeah, there's probably some little stuff on the side of the road here, but it isn't quite the type of stuff that I would be looking for. And number 4, it just doesn't feel all that grousey to me. So I wouldn't totally discount this spot, but I wouldn't be super upset about walking through here at a pretty fast pace. I am hiding in the woods again from the wind and rain. Tip number 5 is in regards to how these birds can sometimes give away their position. So there's a couple ways that they do this, and they're both via your ears. They're both audio clues. So the first way is a little peep. So grouse make, especially when they're in groups, to let each other know where they are, they make a little tweep, beep, and that's all it is. It's not a chirp or a squawk or a squeak, squeak, squeak or a scraw. It's just tweep. Now, I don't really use that almost ever. I'm not really paying too much attention for it. I don't hear it often. It's hard to distinguish when you have your ear protection on. There's other birds chirping, the gravel under your feet. I wouldn't recommend that you guys put a lot of stock into that tweep. I certainly don't, and it's just really hard to distinguish. Now, the second way that these grouse will give themselves away, their position away, is via a little rustling noise. So since the grouse like kind of thicker brush, so they can fly off and feel nice and safe, like you can't get them once they fly into there, what they have to do a lot of times is move a couple feet to find a spot that they can actually fly off, because what they're in might be too thick for them to just take off. So they actually have to walk a few feet to find an opening, which kind of brings us to a point that we're going to talk about, a tactic that people use when grouse hunting, which is when you're in kind of a tight spot, which we'll get into here, I think in spot number 6. We'll go over that a little more. But people will use this tactic where they walk a little bit and they stop. So when you stop for like 15, 20, 30 seconds, it kind of gets those grouse a little antsy in their pantsy, and you can be listening and listen for that little rustle as they move, locate them, and then when they flush, you can take your shot. Now, we're going to talk at spot number 6 about walking, kind of how I approach that. But yeah, there's 2 tactics you can use to locate the grouse before they ever flush. However, I would pay much more attention to the rustling and even really either of those things I don't hear super often, but it is something, just another tool in your toolbox to locate the grouse. So let's get to spot number 3 here, which is just right up there in the wind and rain, and I'll show you guys spot number 3. Now here is spot number 3, and you guys might be saying, whoa, that's clear cut. Well, that's true. This half of it is clear cut, but this half over here is not. I've had pretty decent success on these half and half spots, and one of the reasons is because you can predict what the grouse are going to do. The grouse pretty much aren't going to be over here, and they're also not going to flush that way, as there's, well, nothing over there. The grouse will be along this edge, and they're always, well, I shouldn't say always, but generally they're going to flush this way. So if you find a spot like this that you think looks a little grousey, at least on one side, you know that the grouse will most likely be over here, and they'll most likely flush that way. So armed with that information, if you're just walking by a spot like this, you could be kind of prepared and know what these grouse are likely to do. Spot number 4. So we're getting up into some pretty grousey territory in my opinion now. As you can see, this is thick. This is a very jungly area. So let's break it down with our 4 components. Number 1, is there roosting trees? Well, yes there is, and they are just about the right age. Maybe 20 years old or so. Number 2, is there cover? Well, yeah, it is thick in here. These grouse would feel extremely safe flying off into this, and there's plenty of little pockets for them to hang out on the road, like right here, and then just take off into the trees. Number 3, is there food? Absolutely. All along the side of the road here is little grass and little clovers and small shrubs with buds and berries and stuff. And then number 4, does this spot feel grousey? Absolutely. This is like a jungle in here. There is a nice combination of everything in here. Roosting areas, cover, food, gravel, everything is here for the grouse, and it's probably a spot that they feel absolutely safe hanging out on the road because they can just take off into this thick brush. And as a matter of fact, on this in particular road, which is a small side road like I mentioned earlier, that's only about 1.5 miles long, so perfect to walk, I have actually seen multiple grouse out on this road. There is spot number 4. Let's move on to spot number 5. Dang it, you guys, I just flushed a grouse. Now I'm not actually out hunting today. I am out here just trying to film this video, but I do have my shotgun with me just in case. So it just shows when you're driving from spot to spot, be ready because you could see a grouse. Now, as it often happens, by the time I hopped out and put my ear protection on and got a couple shells in my shotgun, he flushed like, I don't know, 60 yards away, and before I ever even had a chance. We are here at spot number 5, and I think we are on tip number 5. So before I show you this spot, let's get on to tip number 5, which has to do with the time of day that I like to hunt and roosting. So I think the general consensus would be that people like to hunt in the mornings and in the evenings. So the reason for that also has to do with roosting. Now let's talk about roosting real fast. I think I've said it in the video already, but these grouse like to roost up generally in evergreen trees, and they'll come down in the mornings, and in the evenings before they go up to roost, they will come down and feed on the road, you know, those first few hours in the morning and the last few hours of the day. So if you find a grouse somewhere on the road, he probably has a roosting spot within a few hundred feet of there. Because I don't think they go real far. They like to, you know, come down from their roost and go a few hundred feet in either direction. So if you find a grouse, there's a good chance you might find him there again. Now, as far as the time of day goes, I sort of abide by the morning and evening thing. However, I don't like to hunt exactly at first light. I like to wait till it warms up just a little bit. So if it's light at 7, I might go out at 8 or 9. Grouse don't have a lot of fat on them and they get cold real easy. So I kind of like to wait till it warms up. That's a little blown out. I like to wait till it warms up just a little bit, but I have seen grouse at all times of the day, obviously. So my favorite time of day is a little bit later in the morning and evening time, but you will find grouse all day. Okay, so with the roosting covered and the time of the day covered, let's show you guys spot number 5. Here is spot number 5, and it looks grousey as hell. Just a quick aside, these last 3 spots are all obviously at the top of the list. Spots 5, 6, and 7, I would almost say are interchangeable. It would be hard for me to pick a favorite. But let's break down spot number 5 here and go over the 4 components of what we're looking for. So number 1, does this spot have roosting trees? Absolutely it does. There's some nice fir trees back behind a nice wall of alders. So which kind of gets us right into number 2. Does this spot have cover? Well, yes, it does. It has nice cover for these birds to fly into and feel nice and safe, like they could fly back in there and you'd never find them. It's pretty thick. Number 3, which is where we get into a little bit of a weird situation here, is there food? Well, yeah, there is. You can see some like cloverish stuff on the ground and little shrubs and stuff. Now, what makes this spot a little bit unique right now is that there was just some road work done this summer. So you can see how open the sides are. They came through with the big mower and they mowed the sides. So normally there would be all types of little shrubs with buds and berries and stuff for the birds to eat. But like I said, they just did road maintenance on this spot. With that being said, I still did just see a grouse right here. And if you wait till say next fall or the fall after that, when some of this stuff starts to grow back up, this spot will probably be pretty epic. But as it is, I would still absolutely hunt this spot. And then number 4, does this spot feel grousey? Yeah, this spot feels super, super grousey. It just has the look and the feel and the combination of pretty much everything that I would be looking for. The only reason this spot might not be at the top of my list is because of that recent road work. So there's spot number 5. Let's move on to spot number 6 and have a look at that. All right, I am walking into spot number 6 here, and we're gonna talk about tip number 7, which is, well, walking. I think at spot number 3, I had talked about a strategy people use, which is to occasionally stop and see if they can hear a bird and then possibly get it on the wing, which means to shoot it when it flushes. If you know that stopping and just waiting will make those birds anxious and flush, then you could apply that same kind of principle to walking. Your walking speed, basically. So if you walk really, really slow, you might make those birds anxious and they might flush far away from you before you ever get a chance to take a shot. If you walk really, really fast, they might just stay hidden, and like when you drive on these dirt roads, Branch, a lot of times you're going, well, way faster than you'd walk, and so the birds feel like, well, I'm hidden, I'll just stay hidden until this thing goes by. So you might not ever see or hear the bird. which is why I walk at a nice medium pace. Now there's kind of 3 states of readiness depending on where I'm at that I hold my shotgun. And let me show you guys that. Now if I'm in a spot that I don't think is very grousey at all, say like a clear cut or a really open old growth area, I might walk with my shotgun not ready at all, which would look something like this or like this. Now if I'm in a spot that I think looks okay, but not super fantastic, but also not terrible, I'll walk in a kind of half-ready position, which is probably what I use the most because you don't want to ever really be totally unprepared. But I will walk often like this, just so I'm kind of half ready to pull and take a shot. Now if I'm at a spot that I think looks like, holy cow, this is the grousiest spot in the whole world, I gotta be ready right now, I might walk actually like this. Now, at least for me personally, I can't hold that that like fully ready position walking around like that for too long, so I only use it in short bursts at sections that I think are just super duper grousey. But yeah, you can't hold that fully ready position for too long. That's what she said. So what I do basically is I walk at a nice medium speed. If you walk too slow, you might spook them early. And if you walk too fast, you might walk right by them. So I walk at a nice, steady, medium speed, and usually with my shotgun at sort of a medium ready position. All right, now with walking out of the way, let's walk to spot number 6. Here is spot number 6, you guys. I've actually shown you this in videos before. So let's take a look at all the different components here. Number 1, does it have roosting trees? Why, yes, it most certainly does. And in front of those roosting trees is a nice wall of alders, and it's pretty thick on either side, so those grouse feel nice and safe to just dart off into that heavy brush. So number 3 is their food. Well, as you can see all along the sides, there's what looks like food on the ground, as well as some small shrubs and berries and stuff. Number 4, does this spot feel grousey? Yeah, this is what I would call an extremely grousey spot. So this spot has sort of one major drawback and one major bonus to it. The drawback to this spot is that it is extremely tight in here. I don't really know if you can tell that on camera, but if you flush a grouse in here, you might not even get a shot off on it at all. And as soon as it flies into there, yeah, you're not going after that. So drawback, it's going to be really hard to get a shot off in here, which is why you might use that walk, 50 feet and stop for 20 seconds, walk 50 feet and stop for 20 seconds. Now the bonus of this spot is that it is actually a blocked off, unmaintained road. So at the beginning of this road is a bunch of boulders, and they've dug ditches, and now it's pretty much just a dirt bike path. So I wouldn't come out here on the weekend if there's dirt bikers and four-wheelers and stuff, but on a rainy weekday like it is now, you're probably not going to see one out here. So the rules in Washington State get a little bit confusing about shooting off of roads, maintained roads, and negligent shots. It gets a little bit confusing. So I would recommend you pick up your hunter's guide and try and understand those rules. But with a non-maintained road like this, those rules get lessened a bit. I'm not saying do anything dumb and shoot stupid. I'm just saying you're able to take more shots on an unmaintained road. Okay, so spot number 6. This spot is awesome. Let's move on to our final spot, but before we do, let me just reiterate that spots number 5, 6, and 7, the last couple spots, are all extremely grousey and kind of interchangeable and I wouldn't mind hunting any of them. I might pick different ones on different days or try and hit all three. Okay, on to the last spot. Check out this spot, you guys. I absolutely love this kind of area for grouse hunting. This looks super, super grousey to me. Let me break down the environment and I will show you some of the things that I look for when I'm out grouse hunting. Now you might notice that on either side of the road is deciduous trees, specifically alder trees. And behind this like 20-foot or 30-foot layer of alder trees is evergreen trees. Way back in there you can see them. So the alder trees provide some cover and food, and behind that the evergreen trees provide the grouse a place to roost at night. Now let's take a look a little lower. You guys might notice that on the side of the road is plenty of small shrubs and bushes. So the grouse will come and they will come down from the evergreen trees at night from their roost, and they will come along these bushes here just off the road and they will feed. It provides them cover so it's hard to see them, and then if they sense danger they can flush real quick back out into the thicker woods. So let's get down a little lower here even. So if you look all along the ground, it's got a nice layer of small vegetation. Now these grouse will come out and they'll eat small vegetation, insects, and then also these small shrubs and small alder trees will provide berries and buds for them to eat. So if you look at the combination here of all of this road together with the protective layer of trees, a spot to roost, gravel to come down and eat and put in their gizzard, as well as a place to have a dirt bath, and food and protection along the side of the road, this looks like to me a perfect place to find a grouse. And it just so happens I've seen several grouse on this road. Another thing that this spot in particular has is a draw with a creek running up it. So you will notice here that the road comes down and takes a bit of a turn here. So there's a draw and there's the draw going up. So what the draw does with the creek in it is it provides a spot with water for the grouse. And then when they are hiding and eating down here, it provides a nice open path so they can haul ass up in the woods and you'll never see them again. But they really like these little draws, so keep your eyes open when you're in here. And last but not least, I don't know if you guys can see this, but if you were to get a grouse here, these alder trees will often have in these draws, because they're wet and cold, this dead alder tree has a bunch of oyster mushrooms growing on it, and if you got a grouse, you could pick some of those and cook it up with it. All right, you guys, so we covered a bunch of tips and tricks as far as grouse hunting goes, as well as 7 different kinds of environments that you might encounter whilst out grouse hunting. I certainly can't cover every single time and every scenario and every type of environment that you might encounter. Otherwise the video would be like 6.5 days long. So if you guys have any questions about anything that I've brought up, or just any questions about grouse hunting in general, go ahead and leave me a comment down in the comments down below. I'll try and get back to you and answer those as fast as possible. If you think that I'm full of shit, or I'm right, or I'm wrong about something, I'd also like to hear it. I'm always down to learn new stuff. So if you think that I've made a grave error or said something great, also let me know down in the comments down below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button. Maybe subscribe if you want more content as far as grouse hunting and backcountry fishing goes. Remember also to take it easy on yourselves if you go out and don't get any grouse or don't find any grouse. Grouse hunting is difficult. That's what makes it so much fun. When you add on the Pacific Northwest jungle here, it makes it just that much harder. So grouse hunting isn't easy, so don't be too rough on yourself if you're not out there slaying grouse on a daily basis. And remember, always play, is that a grouse or a rock? You're always wrong. Anyway, thanks for watching, you guys. I hope that was helpful. We'll see you guys on the next adventure.